Well, greetings, Thomas enjoyers. And yes, I've actually decided to do a review of Thomas and Friends. I want to make it quick here because I gotta be honest here, just like Mr. Enter, preschool shows are not my forte. I don't do a lot of preschool shows. In fact, I hardly do them at all. Yeah, I never touched upon preschool shows. And why is that, you might ask? Because they're just so easy to pick on. They just seem like easy targets, and it's rather mean to pick on preschool shows, especially when the whole target audience of preschool shows is a lot different from shows like The Loud House, for example. Preschool shows are made with a much younger audience in mind. And because of that, you have to make sure you want to pick on preschool shows. Because, yeah, certain shows like Dora the Explorer and Barney and Friends and the Teletubbies, they do seem kind of silly to the average adult, but for little kids they're pretty good. Because all that matters in the preschool show is if your little kid can enjoy it. Although there are a couple of exceptions like Caillou, which, yeah, it doesn't teach kids good lessons at all. The whole point of a preschool show is to teach kids things. Although I wouldn't want to touch Caillou in fear of certain kids liking it, but I'll give Caillou an exception though, because, well, Caillou, as mentioned before by Mr. Enter, is one of the worst 90s cartoons. But even though I'm not a fan of Caillou and I don't like Caillou, I probably wouldn't take a look at it. And Cocomelon, because, well, Cocomelon's just evil. There's a ton of videos on YouTube talking about Cocomelon, because Cocomelon is just straight up evil, and it's just brain rot disguised as educational entertainment. That's why it's so evil. It's so much worse than Caillou, because at least in Caillou, it's not disguised as brain rot. And there's another exception that I'll talk about. Preschool shows that are actually good and worth watching. Like Sesame Street, for example. Sesame Street can be watched by everyone of all ages. You can still watch it to this very day, and it'll always put a smile on your face. That's why Sesame Street, in my opinion, has a much bigger appeal than Barney and Friends, because not only is it really good to watch, aside from Elmo, of course. I'm not a fan of Elmo. It's also a good show that you can put on at any time and find some enjoyment, especially with the Muppets and the full-body Muppets. Yeah, Big Bird is a full-body Muppet, and his expression is neutral to allow for sadder moments. And another preschool show that's actually worth watching, as I've started watching it because of the passing of a certain individual, is Thomas and Friends, believe it or not. Yeah, I thought this show was going to be silly, like Teletubbies and Barney and Friends, but no. Thomas and Friends is actually timeless. There's a reason why it has a much bigger appeal than Barney and Friends and, well, Teletubbies. It's because, unlike those shows, it can be watched by everyone. Everyone of all ages. And as a preschool show, it is excellent. It is a timeless classic. Yeah, I've watched the first season. The synopsis of every episode is that, well, Thomas and his friends would usually go on adventures in the Sodor Railway. The island of Sodor is where the show takes place, and the model work is fantastic. I actually prefer the model work of the original show over the CGI of the newer series. Although I don't think the newer series CG is that bad, it's just standard for preschool shows. It's just that the model work is so special. You actually feel that people worked hard on this show. And there's a lot of special effects that just go to show how wonderful practical effects can become. Yeah, so Thomas and Friends has an excellent model work, and the people are also uniquely designed. Yeah, it does feel like I'm watching a show in the Maitland's model. Yeah, that's the Maitland's in Beetlejuice, in case if you haven't known already. So yeah, I do like watching a show where it takes place inside a model, and practical effects are cool. This is what I like about practical effects. And not to mention, the pacing of the show. I have to agree with another certain YouTuber that talked about this show before, is just right. When you watch Thomas and Friends, you feel relaxed. The pacing is slow-paced, but it helps with relaxing the mind. Yeah, it makes you feel relaxed, and that's why people with autism like to watch it, because of the pacing. And the show is also fun to watch as well. It's such a unique feeling that no other show that I know of can capture. No other show that I know of has this well-paced, relaxing feel other than Thomas. And the characters are also memorable. Yeah, let's not forget the characters. Thomas and Friends, has good characters. Thomas the Tank Engine, everybody knows about, needs no introduction. You see him, you know him. You see his shadow, you can tell who he is. So, you know who Thomas is. He's just as famous as Lightning McQueen. But that's not to say the other characters are ones to be ignored, because they're not. They're actually great. A lot of them have great personalities, and they can range from Gordon the Big Engine, who doesn't like being teased by the other engines, and Percy the Little Engine, who likes to play jokes. Yeah. Percy is also a rather unusual looking train, by the way. He is a really tiny train that has 4 wheels. I've never seen a steam engine that looked like that, but apparently the Brits made it. So yeah, that's one thing I have to say. Pretty much most of the steam locomotives and diesel locomotives and trains in Thomas and Friends, and heck, even some of the vehicles are British. Yeah, the steam locomotives are British, a lot of them are. Yeah, you do get some exceptions, like Hero, for example, being based on the same steam locomotive that Astro Train transforms into. And there's also another steam train that's based on an American locomotive from the newer series, but it's mostly all British steam engines, which makes sense considering that Thomas and Friends is a British show. It was made in Britain. And yeah, the faces might look weird at first, but you get used to them. The faces are not so weird once you get used to the series itself. And I've mentioned this before in another one of my videos, but there's also Terrence the Tractor, who is based on a Caterpillar tractor that has tank-like treads. I've never actually seen many tractors that have treads instead of wheels, but I guess it's a preschool show and you do learn new things. So yeah, Thomas and Friends might just be a kid's show, but it is an excellent kids show. I actually found some enjoyment out of it and started getting into it myself. And I had to watch it because Britt Allcroft sadly passed away. Yep. And she adapted the Railway series of books and did a good job on it. Bravo. Yeah, Britt Allcroft will be forever remembered for adapting the Railway series of books into such a timeless classic. The model work is amazing. The pacing is just right. And you actually do relate to the characters. Especially the steam engines. Yes, there's also the diesel engines, but I've yet to watch all the episodes of Season 2. I only watched Season 1 so far, and the steam engines are relatable characters. I feel that this is similar to Sesame Street, where you do relate to the characters as well. Well, I'm not a fan of Elmo, but the characters do have relatable situations, though. I can't compare it to big kids shows because this is a preschool show. You have to compare it to other preschool shows. And you're required to do that, even though I don't do preschool shows that often. So yeah, Thomas and Friends is a great classic. And yeah, some people might treat it like God's gift, but there's a reason for that. It is such a timeless classic that has a time-honored tradition of being enjoyed by everyone of all ages, not just kids, but adults. Heck, you even get model trains of the Thomas characters. Yeah, expensive model trains of characters from Thomas and Friends. And Train Simulator even did a collab with Thomas and Friends. That just goes to show how timeless the show is and how much appeal the show has as well. And even Loud House fans could enjoy Thomas and Friends. I've seen some Loud House fans, like Wildcat 1999, enjoy this show. So yeah, I believe there's actually a reason for the faces being on the fronts of the train itself and not having the faces in the windows. Yeah, I think it's because so that the conductors and firemen and the other people, no, that's not a fireman that puts out fires, that's a fireman who deals with all the coal, can ride along. And that actually does make sense. And it actually makes for great ride-alongs for children. So that's why the trains have the faces on the front, so that people can ride along with the characters. Yeah, I believe that is the reason for it. So yeah, what can I say about Thomas and Friends other than the original series has pacing that's just right, the model work is fantastic, and for a preschool show, it is still enjoyable by all ages. Which is why Thomas and Friends gets a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this is just a review of the series in general. I might do a review of separate episodes in the show itself just to rank how good they are compared to others. If you want me to review separate episodes of Thomas and Friends, let me know in the comments. But anyways, this video Scott signing off. I have to get to work because someone wants to rent a Laserdisc of Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.